So all this year, we've been leading up to this point. We've been talking about it in Bible class. We've been telling you about Jesus and how he loves you. At Christmas, we got to see how was Jesus born? How did he come into the world? And then we were all telling you there's going to be more to the story. It wasn't over yet. And so now, today, we're going to be telling you about the most exciting part of the whole Bible, at least to me.
Yeah.
And we're really excited. So let's get started. We're going to tell you the most amazing part that you're going to get to hear about Bible all year. So go ahead and start our Bible lesson today. I have these little eggs, and I, along with your other grade 1 teachers, are going to be using these Easter eggs to tell our Easter story. Our blue egg. So Jesus had his disciples, the men that traveled with him and were learning from him. They called him teacher. And he told them to go get this donkey. And they used the donkey to ride into the city. And this is what happens. It says, in Jesus' day, most people walked everywhere. Sometimes kings rode on donkeys or horses when they entered a city. The people would stop what they were doing and watch as the king rode by. People were thrilled and so excited to see him. They believed that he was their new king who had come to save them and fill their lives with love and joy. The people showed their happiness by spreading tree branches and coats on the road, much like we might use a red carpet today. So if you have like a movie star would walk across on a red carpet, this was kind of like the same thing. They put the branches down on the ground and took their coats off and put it on the ground, and they let Jesus' donkey walk across it. And so that brings us to our blue egg, the donkey.
Let's take a look and see what's in our second egg, the light pink egg. Ooh, it looks like it's silver coins. Let's see how this plays a part in our story. So, we just saw how Jesus came in on a donkey, and it says not everyone was happy to have Jesus as his king. Not everybody liked him. Some people only pretended to be happy. So on the outside, they looked like they were happy, but on the inside, they didn't want anything to do with him. And one of those people was a man named Judas Iscariot. Now, Judas Iscariot was said to be a friend of Jesus's. But some other men hated Jesus so much that they wanted to kill him. But they needed the help of someone who could get them close to Jesus. Because Judas Iscariot was a pretender, and because he was greedy for money, to be greedy means that he wanted lots of money. He just couldn't have enough, and he had to have more and more. So he told these men that he would help them capture Jesus if they would pay him 30 silver coins.
All right, the next egg is this purple egg. Let's see what's inside. Can you see it? What do you think it is? It's like a little cup, something that you might use to drink with. Let's see how this plays a part of our story today. All right, so Jesus actually was having dinner with his friends, and he was remembering a holiday called Passover. Do you remember in our Bible class we talked about how the angel of the Lord passed over the Israelites and kept them safe during the 10 plagues? And Jesus is celebrating here that holiday all of these years later with his disciples, because the Jewish people were told by God to remember that holiday every year. So here Jesus is with his disciples, and they're having dinner and they're celebrating this holiday. But during the meal, Jesus actually stands up and he gives a cup, and he holds it out and he gives each of his disciples a drink from this cup. And then he says something about this cup that was really hard for his disciples to understand, because there was a drink in the cup and it was wine, and he said, "This wine is actually my blood." And the disciples are like, "Huh? What do you mean this is blood? This is our drink.
What? Ah! Ah! I don't want to drink blood. Ew.
But he didn't mean that they were actually drinking blood and that they were drinking his blood, but it was a symbol. The wine was a symbol or a picture, a representation of his blood that was going to be shed later. And he wanted them to remember this special night and do it as a covenant or a promise repeatedly in order to remember him. And he was making it not only to the disciples, but to all of his people. And so today, so many people still drink the wine or drink the juice and remember what God has done for us. So keep listening and we're going to find out more about Easter.
Let's look at our next egg. It is an orange egg, and let's see what's inside. Wow, we have some praying hands. Let's see how that plays a part of our story. Right, so after dinner, after the Passover, it says that Jesus took his disciples with him to pray in the garden. And he asked them to pray while he was in another place of the garden praying as well. And as he began to pray, he was feeling very sad because Jesus knew that he was going to die. It says Jesus was willing to die, for he had once said in a different part of the Bible, it said that no one takes his life from him, but he gave it to them. And it says, you see, one of the most amazing things about Jesus was that, like no one before and no one since, he was both God and man. And the God part of him was willing to die and give his life because of his great love for us. But the human part of him, the person, the man part of him, was scared and sad about this pain that he was going to feel by having to die on a cross.
Let's look at our fifth egg and see what's inside of it. Look at that. It looks like a rope, but this is actually a whip. Let's see how this plays a role in our story. It says, when Jesus finished praying in the garden, the men who wanted to kill him took him as their prisoner. They took him away and they brought Jesus to Pilate. Pilate, he was the ruler in that day. He was the one who was in charge of everybody. And he had Pilate punish him. They took this whip and they hit Jesus with it. It was very, very painful, and it hurt Jesus so very much. But Jesus, he had never done anything wrong. Now, we've talked a lot about this in Bible. God and Jesus are one person, and they have never done anything wrong. They've never sinned. But these men, they were afraid, and they were afraid of losing power, so they wanted Jesus to die. So they wanted Jesus out of their way. They had to try to eliminate him or get rid of him. And they knew that if people believed in God and they believed that he was God, that they would follow them. And they were afraid of what would happen if they followed God. So that was their way of reacting to it. It was not good and it was not right.
Let's look at egg number 6. What's in our yellow egg? Ooh, can you see what it is? It's a little chicken or a rooster. And you might wonder why a rooster has anything to do with the Easter story. But I'm going to tell you. So Peter was one of Jesus' friends and really good disciple. And the sound of the rooster actually made him cry. And you might be like, why? Why did he cry when he heard a rooster crow? And it was because he had promised Jesus the night before Jesus was arrested and taken away to be killed, that he would be loyal to him. He would stand by his side and stand up for him no matter what. But then, just within a few hours, Peter realized that by taking Jesus aside, he might actually be arrested and tried to be killed as well. And that scared him. So Peter actually denied Jesus and said, "No, I don't know him." And Jesus had told Peter that the rooster was going to crow 2 times. And on the second time he crowed, Jesus said, "You're going to deny me and say you do not know me 3 times. And so the next morning, early in the morning, because you know when roosters crow, early in the morning, right? The rooster crowed twice, and Peter was shocked and so sad because he realized that he had told different people that he did not know Jesus. He had no idea who this person was, and he lied about knowing his good friend Jesus, and that made him very sad.
Guys, let's look at our next egg. Let's see what's inside. Oh, this is interesting. Looks like some sticks. Let's see, how does this play a part in our next part of our Bible lesson? All right, so now it's been a little while, a couple of hours, and all of these terrible things have happened to Jesus in just this short amount of time that even after Jesus had been whipped, the soldiers took a branch or sticks and they twisted them into a shape of a crown. And it says as they pushed it down onto his head. And if you see these sharp parts, doesn't look like it would feel very good. It looks like it would hurt a lot. And so I'm not telling you these things to make you sad, but I'm telling you these things to show you how much Jesus loved you. That he was okay with going through this pain of the whipping and his friends saying he didn't know them and the thorns on his head because of how much he loves you and he loves me and he loves everyone else. And it says that Jesus was taking this punishment for all of the wrong things that any person had done before or would do later. And that includes us, like I said.
Wow, we're getting near to the end of Jesus' life. And this egg, let's see. What do you think it is? Can you see? Some nails. Nails. It sounds painful. But Jesus was nailed to the cross. And that is what the soldiers did. They took him to the top of a hill called Golgotha, and there they nailed him. They put these nails into his hands. Can you imagine a nail that you use with a hammer to maybe put pieces of wood together going through your hand? Ow! But Jesus took it. He took both of the nails in his hands and in his feet, and the soldiers put him on these two pieces of wood on the cross. And that is how he was stuck to this wood and put up on this hill, and he died a few hours later. And the Bible tells us that Jesus was stronger than any other man. And the soldiers could have just killed Jesus, but they actually chose this way, the crucifixion, because it was known to be one of the worst possible deaths. And Jesus, he is very strong. He could have fought off these soldiers if he wanted, but he didn't. And that's because God loves us so much. He loves you, he loves me, he loves Mrs. Hannah and Miss Amanda and all of your parents and your friends and your siblings in the whole world. And he loves us and knew us so much on that cross. And that is why he decided he was going to hang up there and he was going to die for us. And he was willing to do it just because he loves us.
Our next egg is a spear. And this next part, let's see how this applies to the story. This next part is really cool because it's a part of the Bible where you get to see where the older part of the Bible told about what was going to happen in the future, and we get to see it happening. So in the older part of the Bible, the Old Testament, it said that when Jesus did die, that no bones in his body would be broken. And so now at Jesus' death, we get to see that that part that the Old Testament had said comes true. And so we use the spear, and it says after a few hours, Jesus had died on the cross, and the soldiers, they came to check on him, and they saw that he was already dead. And so normally they would break the legs of the people on the cross. But remember in the Old Testament it said no bones would be broken in Jesus' body. And so when they saw that he was already dead, it says that they took a spear and they just poked him in his side. But they didn't break any bones. And so I think that's so amazing that in the Bible it told us what was going to happen, and then we got to see it happen.
Take a look and see what's in our 10th egg. looks like some kind of cloth. I wonder how this will play a part in our story. Well, it says, after Jesus died, a man named Joseph asked if he could bury him. This was a brave and loving thing for Joseph to do, especially because all of those men in those days were not very kind to Jesus, and so he wanted to do something kind for him. Remember that the men who killed Jesus didn't believe that he was the Son of God, but Joseph, he was a man who did believe, and he wanted Jesus to have a proper burial. Joseph knew that this might get him in trouble with the soldiers, and remember, the soldiers worked for the king. But he was brave, and he asked for permission anyway. So Joseph wrapped the body of Jesus in cloth, sort of similar to this, and then he buried him in a tomb cut out of rock, like a shallow cave. What Joseph did showed that he respected Jesus and he cared about Jesus. So Joseph went away sad because Jesus was dead, and he wondered what would happen next.
All right, egg number 11. Let's see what's inside. A stone. Let's see how that plays into our story. All right, there was this stone that was actually rolled away when the disciples went into the garden. And it was much bigger than the stone. Lots bigger, because it was blocking the whole cave where Jesus was buried. And it probably weighed even more than a car. That's how big it was. But after Jesus was buried, soldiers were assigned to stand guard at the tomb, and these men were no match for God's angel. And it was actually God's angel that rolled the stone away on that third day. And the guards were so afraid that they even fainted, and they fell down on the ground. But where did the angel get the strength from in order to move the stone away? He got it from God.
Look inside our last egg. We got to the 12th egg. Let's see what's in it. There's nothing there. Do you see anything? Let's find out why our last egg is empty. It says when two women came to the tomb of Jesus, they were surprised too. The heavy stone was rolled away and the tomb was empty, just like our egg. And Jesus' body wasn't there. The angel told them, he has risen. Jesus had come back to life. Now that's something that only Jesus can do. And this was the promise that Jesus made to his disciples at that dinner just a few days before, that he would not die, but he would come back to life to show those who believed in him that they would live forever too. Someday, because he died for us, we can meet him and we can be with him in heaven. That is the story of Easter, and it's all true.